In this video, we will be going over how to calculate compound interest when it's compounds per year or some time out of a year. So when calculating for compound interest out of a year, the equation will be A equals P parentheses 1 plus R over N parentheses N times T. These variables all mean different things. So P is equal to your principal. You can just think of principal as the starting amount, or what you put the first day you open or you start your investment. So we can just write it as our initial investment. Okay, so P means initial investment. Now we have R, we have N, and we have T. Okay, so we'll start with R. So R is going to be our APR, or our interest rate, and APR means annual percentage rate. And when we do it, we're going to put it in decimal form, or you can leave it as a fraction doing your calculations. So APR, annual percentage rate. All right. Next, we have N. And N is just basically the number of compounds you do per year. So compounds per year. Okay, I'm going to give a quick example just so we can properly understand what the variable N will mean. So let's say your question says it gets compounded every day. So now you have to think about how many days there are in a year. So 1 year is 365 days, yes. And it's going to be compounded 365 times out of a year. So in this scenario, our N would be 365. Another scenario is if it's once monthly. And now we have to think about how many months there are in a year. And 1 year has 12 months, right? So it's going to be N equals 12, the number of times per year. Finally, another example is going to be annually. So that means 1 year. So in 1 year, there's only 1 year, so it's going to be 1 year. So N would equal 1. Simple, right? Next, we have our last variable, which is T. And T is just basically the time you're trying to calculate, and it'll usually be in number of years. So number of years. All right, now we're going to do an example problem. In this example, we're going to be looking for how much you will have in 5 years if your initial investment was $5,000, okay, and your interest rate is 5%, and it is compounded monthly. Okay, and in this scenario, we are going to first associate what each number or given quantity is equaling to in terms of variables. So 5 years, remember, if we look to our cheat sheet right here, our reference chart, or our reference area, we have T is equal to the number of years. So from this list right here, we can see the number of years we're solving for is 5 years, right? So we have T equals 5 years. Now we're going to look for our initial investment, and the initial investment was P. So our initial investment, as we said, was 5,000. So we're going to put P equals 5,000. Our APR, or annual percentage rate, is 5%. So we have R equals 5%. And now, I gave the example down here that whenever it says monthly, we're going to think how many months there are in a year, and that's the number of times it's going to be compounded. And that's going to be our N value. So N equals monthly, and out of 1 year, there are 12 months, so N is going to be equal to 12, because 1 year equates to 12 months. Okay, now we're going to substitute all these values into this equation up here. So we have A equals P, right? And we said P is 5,000. So we're going to put 5,000 out here. 5,000 parentheses. The 1 is always going to be there. 1 is always going to stay the same. So 1 plus our, now we have to take our R value. Our R value is always going to be a decimal. So 5%, right? You have to turn this into a decimal. And in order to turn it into a decimal, you're just dividing by 100. And 5 divided by 100 is just 0.05. So we have 1 plus a fraction, and remember our numerator is R, and R is equal to 5% divided by 100. So 5 divided by 100, which is equal to 0.05. So we have 0.05 is our R value in our numerator. Now we need to find our N value, and we said N is the number of times it's going to be compounded per year. In this scenario, it's monthly. Monthly means we have 12 months is going to be compounded 12 times per year. So we have 0.05 divided by 12. So move this guy to the side. Now, this is going to be the power of n times t. We already stated our n is 12, right? 12. And that's being multiplied by our t value. And we said t is the number of years. And in this scenario, we're given that we want to calculate for 5 years. So we have 12 times 5. Now we're going to simplify this down here. A equals 5,000, parentheses 1 plus 0.05 over 12, parentheses 12 times 5 is just 60, right? So we're going to just make it 60. Go down one more time. So A equals... Now we're going to solve for what A actually equals. And in this scenario, we're just going to substitute into a calculator. And the value we get back is what our A equals. And that's going to be the total amount we get back after 5 years with the 5% interest rate compounded monthly and an initial investment of $5,000. And we get A equals $6,416.79. And we always want to round to our nearest cent, and obviously 79 is the nearest cent. But let's say it was 0.798. So this 8 would round this, and remember 9 rounded up is just 1. So that's going to round this 7, so it's just going to be 6416.8. But again, we cannot just have 0.8. We're not going to go to a cashier and say, I want 0.8 of a dollar. You're going to say you want 80 cents. So you're going to put 0.80. That's just an example. In this scenario, it's just 0.79. That was just an example. And so we get our answer as A equals 6,416.79. And that is how we do it for a compound interest that's being compounded some variation or some part of a year. I hope this video really helped. And if you do believe it helped you, please consider to like this video and subscribe. Thank you.